So today we're talking about entrepreneurship from I'll say it like a non-traditional sense, but we're talking about entrepreneurship through acquisition. So we're going to be talking about business acquisition. We're going to be talking about franchising and of course access to capital. So we want this to be interactive. So please, I have questions that I do, want to ask to guide the conversation, but we do want to hear your questions. So please, at any time, feel free to raise your hand, start asking a question. We have these resources here available for you. So I'll let our panelists introduce themselves, a little bit about you and why you're here. We'll start with you, Ahmad.
Sure, Ahmad Gulri, born and raised here in Dallas, worked for the U.S. Small Business Administration, where I've been there for about 13 years, overseeing economic development, which is like the marketing end of the agency. So my team and I were responsible for going out into our 72-county territory, marketing SBA's programs and services. So doing maybe about 70% of our time, things like this, interacting with the community, building partnerships, and making sure that entrepreneurs and business associations and groups know about SBA's programs and services, so that businesses like you can take advantage of those. A little bit about the agency. We're a federal agency, so the head of our agency serves on the president's cabinet, just like the Secretary of Defense or Secretary of State. This goes to show you how important entrepreneurship is to our economy, that our agency is such a high-level federal government agency like it is. But we're responsible for doing any and everything for small business owners, from the point of starting and helping you get connected with resource partners, to do counseling and consulting, to help you grow your business, getting you the financial tools to expand, and making sure that you maintain success. So we have loan programs for those purposes. We have counseling programs for those purposes. And a really important key, which is where I started with the SBA, is helping you get access to government contracting opportunities through the procurement process. So we have a wealth of programs, and we'd be more than happy to talk more in detail about those as we go on today. So thanks for having me. Thanks for doing it. Schools.
Skyline. Oh, that's a Brown PG.
Exactly.
We're good.
Skyline.
I am Dion Cooper, so I am the Chase SBA specialist for the Metroplex. So Chase employee that focuses, I'm subject matter expert on SBA only. I cover literally the entire Metroplex. So if you run in contact with the banker at Chase, lending, I partner with them in that. I have been with the bank for 29 years, and 15 of those years I've spent in the SBA world. And I've started from being eligibility officers and ins and outs of that to being out in the field and talking to clients and prospects. So I think what you'll find today is that you've got SBA, and he's going to be really like at the high level of government what the SBA will do, and then I kind of bridge the gap, telling you what Chase will do within SBA, because Chase is a little bit different. Each lender has different rules and requirements in following first and foremost what the SBA says. So I'm so happy to be here. Terry, thank you. So business acquisitions are part of my passion. So out of all the things that the SBA provides financing for, I would have to say business acquisitions is my favorite. So.
Awesome. Thank you both again for being here. So, like you said, we're going to talk about business acquisition, and before we do that, can we just talk about and explain like what is business acquisition?
Yeah, so it is, from our standpoint, when a person who wants to purchase some type of business endeavor, rather it's a business that's already in existence, that's owned from a current business owner, if you're looking to acquire that or purchase that, that is what we consider a business acquisition. Or if you are looking to go into franchising, that's a major part of SBA financing. We do a lot of that. Actually, have you all ever heard of Nothing But Cakes? In Cedar Hill? That's a business acquisition that is our success story here locally for SBA. So that husband and wife worked in corporate America before they got into entrepreneurship. They got tired of it, came to us. We looked at their business plan. We connected them with our resource partners. They were able to get an SBA loan for about $200,000, and they opened found a facility in Cedar Hill and put that Nothing But Cakes there, and has experienced growth ever since moving there. They've created jobs. They continuously see increased sales, But that's an example of business acquisition through franchising that we funded here locally through SBA, and it's creating jobs all over the community, and they're being successful business owners while working in business.
And I think from my perspective, what we see a lot of are either usually falls into three categories. Either you have an existing business and maybe you're looking to buy a complementary business that will help you streamline your process, or buying another business that's doing the same thing that you're doing to expand. We also see maybe an employee that has worked at a business and now they have the opportunity to buy the business, and we see a lot of that. And then we do see a lot of people who maybe they were in corporate, but they have another passion, or they have, some other things that they have been doing and have an interest in, and the opportunity presents itself for them to buy the business. And I think what we were finding, and Terry was mentioning this earlier, but what we're finding is that there was a time when we had this generational thing going on with businesses. You have a business and you want your son or daughter to run the business, and it's been going on for generations and generations. What we're finding now, not so much, because the kids want to do other things, and they don't want to run the business, and so they're telling their parents, "I don't want to do this." And so then you have a business owner that's at this point kind of stuck because that's not what they thought. They thought their child was going to take over, and so that has now opened the door for a lot of business acquisition opportunities, just because they want to sell the business. They don't want the business to dissolve because they care about their employees, they care about their customers. So we see a lot of that. But those are the main reasons. But that's how we view business acquisitions, that you're going in, buying, like you said, an established business versus starting it up from there as well.
The show hands before today, how many people have heard of business acquisition or know what it is? Good. I'm glad y'all know. It's definitely becoming more of a hot topic. It's definitely nothing new. Business acquisition has been around for many years, but I will say the awareness of it is starting to rise. At least what I see with our community. We're at a pivotal point in time right now where there are a lot of baby boomers, businesses that are retired and they want to, sell these businesses. It's actually a really great way to get into business if you're not in business, and it's also a great way to scale your business. So you mentioned being able to buy a complementary business to streamline operations or to expand. An example is, I'm a CPA, and there are, I won't say tons, but there are select CPAs that are retiring right now, and it's an opportunity for me to, expand my business from a small solo practice to maybe going and acquiring a larger firm with employees and already with clients, already has systems in place in business, and really just managing that and being able to benefit from something that somebody else already built. So it's really powerful in all aspects of business when you want to expand. So with that being said, with business acquisition, what are some advantages that you see to doing business acquisition versus just starting, something from the ground up? Because typically, you think entrepreneurship, you think business, you think, I got to have a new idea. It's got to be super innovative. Nobody else could be doing it. I got to have this special secret formula recipe. I got to struggle. I got to start from the ground up and do it. But there's also another path you can take. So what are some of the advantages that you all see when it comes to business acquisition?
Oh, sure. I think it's just kind of what you said. It's the fact that you don't have to just start from scratch. You have a model that's kind of already there. And a lot of people, especially if it's something that the industry that they're familiar with, a lot of times they've either worked with that business or they've heard of that business. And so it's just an easier way to get into it if you wanted to get into that industry because it's already there, it's already established. On the flip side of that, I think it's good for like if you're an employee and you just where would I find a business, or who's going to trust me to buy a business or whatever, but you can do it through the fact that you've been working there and you've learned it from the ground up. And that also helps from a lending perspective, because one of the things that banks are looking for, Chase especially, is experience. They want you to have experience in the business that you're trying to buy. And I think it's the key to it, as well as with SBA, is continuity of business. And that's the driving force to keep it going. But it's easier if you think about it, it's so much easier to take a formula and build on that formula versus trying to create your own. It's so much easier to kind of be able to stand outside of the business and look and think of the ways, if I own this business, I would do this and this. And, oh, they're not taking advantage of this, and they should be doing this. And they don't have a social media presence. All of these things that you think of, how much easier is it if you can buy a business and really just focus on that piece of it, of growing it from the aspects that you've seen versus having to start from scratch. So I think that, to me, that's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah. Probably already have. The business probably already has established relationships, clientels. For instance, we do a lot of financing for acquisitions for hotels, and those are always constantly changing ownerships. And you probably don't know that being a guest of a hotel, but all you see is just the hotel that's there. But yeah, they constantly go over different types of ownerships of those hotels. So their clientele and that marketing base is already developed. So that's a benefit of clients of purchasing the business that's already in existence.
So you mentioned hotel. That's interesting because I know some people here are in real estate as well. So when we talk about business acquisition and we talk about the real estate component, can either you expand on that and what's considered for these type of financing deals when it comes to the real estate?
I'm gonna let you speak to that because Chase has certain appetites for things and not for others. So hotels we wouldn't be doing. So I'm gonna let you speak to that.
So hotels is a little bit tricky. A lot of our lenders are not really interested in that whole aspect of hotels. That's more so on our 504 lending side, which brings in a newly development corporation and the lender, the SBA, puts in a certain percentage, and the borrower puts in a certain percentage to purchase those type of projects. Not necessarily through a complete 7(a) transaction. Those are really good in our 504 economic development program.
What are you going to say? I'm sorry. Just to be clear, what is 504?
So 504 is a lending program that SBA has. It's an economic development program. So we have different lending programs. That one's geared toward economic development, and each participant in the program puts in a certain percentage. Like the borrower puts in a certain percentage, the SBA puts in a certain percentage. The Community Development Corporation, which is like a lender, puts in a certain percentage, and then an actual lender comes in and puts a certain percentage in to make the deal work.
And that product is specific to real estate and equipment.
Exactly.
So it's kind of 7(a) is another product that it handles more uses of the funds, and so 504 is a particular for real estate.
And with those, the 504 and the 7(a), what are the lending requirements? What are the minimum loan size, the maximum loan size? Can you kind of explain what are good applications for those?
Yeah, so there's not a minimum loan size on SBA. There is a maximum. Both of those programs max out at $5 million. They're guaranteed. 7(a) is a guarantee loan program, which means that anybody ever heard that term before? A guarantee. So that means that any loans under $150,000 that a bank like Chase does for a loan under the SBA program, if something happens, the SBA guarantees that loan 85% if it's under $150,000. If it's over $150,000, the SBA guarantees 75%. So that means that SBA is taking on that risk for that banking institution. So that's how our loan programs are.
And just to piggyback on that one particular point, it absorbs risk for the lender because it happens at the time of default. So it's only if for some reason you can't pay the loan back, and then the SBA will come and they will absorb 75% of the risk for the lender, so that we're not taking the full brunt of the loss, which helps lenders say yes more when they may otherwise say no because there's some of that risk is being provided. For sure. Say it. Said that.
Yeah. And what are the requirements? So I want to get an SBA loan. What do I need? To be prepared to be able to get approved for one.
I can only speak from Chase's perspective. However, from Chase's perspective, we are looking at, and you want me to just talk general real estate or?
Just the loans in general,
Just in
business.
general? Okay.
Mhm.
So when it comes to our loans in general, it kind of differs. So if we're talking about a business acquisition, then we're looking for 3 years worth of tax returns from the business that you're wanting to buy. If you have an existing business, then we want to get the financials from your business as well. Because when it comes to a business acquisition, the strength of it is in what you're buying. So I think that's the way that we would look at that, as well as needing your personal information, personal tax return, personal financial statement. And a lot of people, because SBA does require 20% of their owners have to guarantee the loan. Some people kind of off with that and don't really like that. But I think you have to kind of look at it from a high level when it comes to risk. So you want the bank to take a risk on you. We want you to have some of that too. So if you believe in your business, we want you to step up. It's just like we have to step up. So I think that's part of the reason that the guarantee is in place. When it comes to real estate, it does need to be 51% owner occupied. So SBA doesn't handle investment real estate, so it has to be owner occupied real estate. So we get that question a lot because investment real estate is kind of really popular right now. Everybody really wants to do that, but for the SBA space, it's really for your business to have a permanent home and to build an equity that way versus putting all of your money into a new space that you don't get the benefit of the investment.
So it has to be more so residential than.
It's business.
Okay, and then it has to be 51% occupied. So can you kind of like explain that? Because how it is in my head, it could be different.
Okay, right. So, so out of the whole building, and I'm just going to use round numbers. So you've got 100,000 square foot building. The SBA says if your business is going to purchase that real estate, you have to occupy at least 51,000 square feet of that building. You can lease out the other 49%.
Okay.
And that would be okay as long as that 49% is leasing back from you.
Gotcha.
That makes sense. Now, if it's ground up construction, the rules kind of change on the occupancy. And they're a little tighter, but the reason why they're tighter is because if you think about it, if you're constructing a building, you have control over how it's made and that you're tailor making it for you. Versus sometimes as a business, you're buying an existing building and it has everything you really needed to have, but maybe it's a little too big, or you might need to lease out some space. So that's why it's a little bit looser.
Yeah, and with that 51% thing, just to recap, really, if you're buying it, it could be like, let's just say it's a small shopping center and you need like an office or it's a retail location, and one is 1,000 square feet and that's where you're gonna operate out, or it's 1,010, 100 square feet, and the other two, are just there, so now you can rent those. And is it true that you can factor in the cash flow so those potential rents or no? No,
yeah, and I don't know, and I have to be honest, I don't know if that's SBA specific. I know it is Chase specific. For us to view it as truly owner occupied, we can't factor in any rents that you're going to make because that's not guaranteed that tenant's going to stay and that income is going to be ongoing.
Mm-hmm. And is that specific to the SBA products for Chase or even conventional?
Even conventional with Chase, they really want the business to be able to self-sustain and be able to cover that bill.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Well, that's good to know. And can you explain kind of some of the differences and benefits of going with SBA? I know there's the guarantee, but interest rates, additional fees like approval. Can you explain like some of the differences going with SBA versus conventional?
So typically at a high level, what you're going to find is conventional is going to request more money down. Specifically with real estate, it's typically 20% down on most transactions. And then more so capping that the term of the loan at 15 years, maybe stretch it out to 20, but in most cases it's 15 years. There are also a lot of conventional lenders that will only do, say for instance, a 10-year term, but a 20-year amortization. So your payments are as if you have a 20-year loan, but you only have a 10-year loan and you have a balloon at the end. With SBA, you're allowed to put 10% down, specifically on 7A. 504 has a couple of nuances. If it's a startup, it bumps it up to 15%. Special use property is the same thing. But it allows you to put less money down and it stretches the term. So you can go out to 25 years on the term. And in the SBA world, we don't have the limits. So everything is fully amortizing. You're done paying, you're done. So it's a full 25-year term, full 25-year amortization. So that's what I see more of, not, especially when it comes to real estate, is that lower down payment and stretching the term. When it comes to business acquisitions, I think the reason why a lot of times we tend to push SBA on that is the level of risk. So even though you're buying an established business, there's still a level of risk because the numbers that we're looking at and what we're going by is how that owner runs that business. And so now there's this risk that you can take it and I'll say that you really don't feel that you can take it and run it to the ground. Or you can take it and totally change everything and it just messes up the dynamic. And so because there's that level of risk, that's why a lot of lenders will push to SBA to help absorb some of that risk. If there is no real estate involved in the business acquisition, we can go out to 10 years, is what the SBA will allow. And a lot of times what you're going to find on a business acquisition where there's not any real estate, I don't know if you all are familiar with the term blue sky or goodwill, but you hear that a lot in business acquisitions. So let's just take, for example, you've got a business, and it really happens more service-wise. CPA is an excellent example, actually. So let's just say you have a CPA business and the purchase price is, I use big round numbers, y'all, because I'm not good at math. So $1 million is the purchase price of that business. And then when you kind of look at what can a bank take as collateral, there's really not a lot to take as collateral on a CPA later. If they're not manufacturing, so they don't have heavy equipment, if there's no real estate involved, you don't have that. What is valuable to the seller and the buyer is the book of business. It's having that client book business. That's great for them, but it doesn't help the bank. So it's not collateral for the bank. So that's where we say that's considered goodwill. It's an intangible asset, something we can't put our fingers on. So you'll hear it called goodwill, you hear it called blue sky, all different terms. But because of that, the bank is now in a collateral shortfall. So that's probably between the risk and the collateral shortfall are the main two reasons that you'll find a lot of lenders will want to go SBA from their perspective. And then because you have that lack of collateral, even if a bank can get comfortable with that on a conventional basis, they may shorten that term to 3 years, maybe 5 years, because they don't have that full collateral. So that's kind of where that bridges the gap of why we see what we see. And I don't know question, but I hope I didn't.
Go ahead.
I have a question. You were talking about owner occupancy. So, how would you classify, say, we purchased a strip mall, and in that strip mall, maybe there are 10 businesses already existing paying rent, but there was a restaurant that occupied maybe 15% of that.
1, 5 or 5 0. So 15 or 50.
15.
15, 1, 5. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
15%.
Uh-huh.
How would you classify? Now, there's no restaurant there. There's a restaurant space. Would you classify that as something that qualifies for? Okay.
No, because under that scenario you just gave, like if there's 10, we're really looking at the total square footage. So if you, in that same scenario, if the restaurant was going to occupy 51% of the space, then yes, that would be something that would.
So modifications need to be made in that instance if something.
Yeah, it depends on the space. So a lot of times in that scenario, you probably would have to tear down walls and do other things, which could be financed as well. So you wouldn't have to pay that up. Okay.
I'm just thinking.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Going to that scenario, you're talking about the book of business. How do you guys evaluate what that value is based on like somebody's book of business, or if they're a service type of like that?
That's an excellent question. So one of the things the SBA requires on a business acquisition is that we get a third-party business valuation. That business valuation will then give credibility to what that purchase price is, and it's really in place to protect the buyer so that you're not overpaying for the business. But they're not coming out to the business to look anything. It's really based on financials. And a lot of the valuation companies, they use different methods, but what they will do for sure is use the method that's most prevalent for that industry. Whether that's a multiplier of revenue, a multiplier of net income, whatever that is that's prevalent. So the valuation may show you 3 different methods, but then it will come to an ultimate value based on the way that it's typically valued in the industry. Does that answer your question? Okay.
And when you say the business owner or the person that wants to acquire a business needs to put in, capital of 10%, where can they get those funds from? And does SBA products allow third party, second position, seller finance type situation?
That's where you and I are going to differ. So I'm going to let you speak to that, and then I'll kind of give you my opinion.
Yeah, no, there's no special SBA program to help pay for it down payment. It's solely involved in either you're purchasing something for your business, either equipment, purchasing real estate, operating capital to pay your employees, day-to-day operations of your business, things like that.
So you were speaking to though, where like if the down payment requirement is 10%, what avenues does the person have to get the 10%?
Right. Example, like, okay, you buy a house, a residential house, they want to know where that money comes from.
Right.
Is it
Exactly.
a gift?
Exactly.
Is it money you had saved up? Did you get another loan and so who's a loan so we can factor that in? So what I'm asking is, with this, since it's a commercial loan product, what are the sources? Like, what are the restrictions on where they can get that 10% from? And are there any scenarios where either general SBA you allow, example, a seller to finance a portion of that? So I know some scenarios, depending on what it is, maybe the seller will do a carryback note on 5%. So you put a 5% in cash. So there's some scenarios you can talk through like that.
And SBA recently just, I'm not gonna blame you personally. SBA literally has done almost a complete overhaul on a lot of the rules and requirements. And so it's been fun trying to learn all of those things. But so I think it differs depending on what you're doing. So when it comes to business acquisitions, I would say that's the one type of transaction where SBA is extremely specific on where it has to come from and what it needs to look like. So they will say it has to be at least 10% down. To your point, 5% of that can come from a seller in the form of a seller carry note. Historically, the rule was that if they do that they cannot receive repayment until the loan has been fully paid, until the loan has been fully paid. But with the recent updates, they've now said that after 2 years, they can start receiving payment. So that's pretty good for sellers to now be more willing to do that seller financing. So they can bring in 5. The SBA actually used to say it had to be 5 and 5, so the buyer had to put in at least 5%. Now, if you actually read it, what they're saying is they have to put in at least 25% of that amount. So they've actually lowered that. So when I say 25%, just a quarter of the funding has to come specifically from the buyer. They don't really. I think there are instances in which, and I'm going to defer to you, there are instances in which it can be borrowed, I believe, but it's the way that you guys look at it. So like if you pay for home equity or things like that, there are some stipulations tied to that. The reason why I can't speak to that is because Chase won't allow it. So it kind of goes back to that Chase SBA and their different things. Chase is kind of really specific when it comes to that, so they do not want the funds borrowed. They want those funds coming directly from the buyer. The SBA will allow forcing seller.
Hey, just to clarify, when you say the 25%, are you saying 25% of the down payment? So 2.5%.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the down payment.
Gotcha.
At the down payment.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And you were saying if they pull money from like a home equity, that they wouldn't be able to use that money?
Not at Chase, you wouldn't. And I want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say that you can use that from an SBA perspective, but it's in the way that is repaid. You have to have an outside source to repay it. It can't come from the income that you generate from the business.
What about like 401k?
Now Chase won't. Okay. Chase won't. Chase is real particular about not wanting you to complete everything you have for that venture because there is risk associated with it. So they're basically saying we don't want you to use every dime that you have. So they're going to want to make sure you still have some money left over after you do the down payment. And then they're saying we don't want you using your retirement assets for this because if something goes astray or whatever, we won't have to retire off of. So Chase won't allow you to do that. Now, I do know that SBA will allow that in certain forms for 401ks and even for them to have like ownership in that. Is that correct?
Yeah, it just depends on the situation. We believe that if you're interested in getting SBA financing in whatever endeavor that you have, we want you to get connected with one of our resource partners, like the small business development centers that we fund to offer free consulting services for you, where they can sit down with you, assess what you're doing, and figure out what may be the best route for what you're trying to do. And they're able to explain all those details based off of your situation. So it's like you going out and hire your own personal consultant where you'll pay that person maybe $600, $700 an hour. We offer that service completely free. So I think the best step is to get you connected with a business advisor that can kind of walk through that process and explain in detail how the programs work in your situation.
And that is the best kept secret ever. What you just said. Small Business Development Corporations, SBDCs. That is the best kept secret that everyone else knows, but we don't seem to know that as much as anyone else. And I honestly will send clients and prospects there. Hands down, I listen and I can tell that they got a vision, they got a dream, but the business part, that's not their thing. They don't know the ins and outs of that, and they need help with that. I'm immediately suggesting that they go to an SBDC. And the way I describe them is they make you bank ready. They'll take your vision and they will make you bank ready so that you can present your vision to a bank and have a bank take you seriously. They will help you with business plans. They will help you with projections because banks ask for projections and you can see some people's eyes glaze over when we're asking for projections like, well, what in the world is that and what do you mean? So they help you with all of that and their services are free. They're free. And I don't think you can beat that. And like I said, there are businesses out there that will charge you a pretty hefty sum to do a business plan for you, to do projections for you, and they'll do it for free. So I think the only thing I say when I talk about SBDCs, be ready to do the work. Be ready to do the work. There's so many people that want stuff they don't want to put the work in, so they will go to the SBDC. SBDC is going to give you some homework. Do this, and this. And then a lot of them, they'll never hear back from you. So they don't want to put the work in. So be ready to put the work in to do that. But they have so many excellent resources, even from the perspective of industry analysis. They have every piece of information for any industry you can think of, demographics to help you find the best location to put your business if you're looking for a location. And then one thing that I really like about them is they have a way of helping you see who your true competitors are. Because sometimes we think that it's just one thing. So like if you take like the bunk case, for example. So you're thinking, well, only competition is going to be like a Crumble or like a this bakery over here, or but you're not factoring in that you got coffee shops now that are making pastries and stuff like that. You've got restaurants that are kind of stepping up on their level of dessert making and things like that. So they kind of help you see that so that you don't put yourself in a saturated area. Things like that. And like I said, it's free. So I'm a big proponent of SBCs.
Just want to check in. Does anybody have any questions that they want to ask?
You mentioned earlier that you have to have perspective. You have to have experience with acquiring our business. So what if you don't have experience, but they have a strong management staff in place? You partner with that management staff to tell us how to apply?
So I'm gonna speak from Chase risk, which again, Chase tends to be more conservative, but I think it's a good thing to know, like the most conservative kind of view of it. I think from our perspective when it comes to our risk level, here's the risk to that. So you don't have the experience, but the management has the experience, and you plan to keep the managers in place. But what do you have that is going to guarantee that those people stay in place for the life of the loan? So again, we're talking about, if there's no real estate involved, we're talking about a 10-year loan. So from a risk perspective, that's how they're going to look at it. How are you going to tie that person or people that grew to 10 years of being with you? And that's why they really want the owner to have direct experience in it, so that even if everybody goes and walks out, you know what you're doing and you can keep it going. So that's why that's kind of important. I don't know if you think that is it overall that's how SBA looks at experience.
I would refer to SBDCs again. SBDCs and our other resource partners have the expertise to know what banking institutions do what and what their requirements are. So again, I would recommend that before you jump into anything like that, definitely consult with one of those business advisors so they can direct you to a lender that's more better suitable for your situation. Again, it's no cost. 8 out of 10 small businesses fail within their first 18 months simply because they jump into stuff that they're just not prepared for. They're not getting that professional advising and consulting like the SBCs offer. So that would be my suggestion in this situation.
And I think he brings up a very good point because SBA has this lovely way of putting, and I love SBA, I talk about it. They have this way of putting these gray areas in their guidance without giving you specifics. So it will give you this blanket statement that says the buyer needs to have experience. Well, that can mean a ton of different things to a ton of different lenders who will approach it all in different ways. So that's why what he's saying is so critical, because then that SBDC, they work with so many lenders that they can know, because there may be a lender that what you just described, they might be perfectly okay with it. And so they would be able to say, yeah, that's the situation, then go over here and talk to them. So that's kind of why you get the differences between lenders, is because there's some things in SOP, which is just SBA standard operating procedure, some things that are extremely black and white. There's a lot of gray. And each lender interprets that differently.
That's what that's for, right?
Oh, really?
And real quick, in this scenario, can bringing on a partner, having a partner in the company with experience satisfy that requirement?
Yes, because then it's an owner. So, you've got, as long as you got that owner kind of tied to it, then for sure that helps.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that kind of ties to that maybe kind of will bring it home, anything that has a licensing requirement attached to the business. So, for example, with daycares, one thing Chase requires is that your owner, one of your owners has to at least have the director's license. Reason being is you have to have a director on the premises to operate daycare. So if you come that morning and you're Mr. Owner and you come in that day and your director and it has happened, and I've heard it, they walked out, your director walks out on you, you can't operate that day. You got to call all those parents back and they got to all pick up their babies because you can't do that. However, if you're the owner and you have the director's license, then you're good. Because it doesn't matter director's license and still have a director to free up your time to do the other things. But it's just that real critical point of if that person leaves, you can keep the doors open because you have that license. So it's things like that, those kind of nuances that may be different from lender to lender. But usually there's a good reason behind it. If you just, as you're looking at lenders and looking for banks that you want to go with, you want to make sure that they're explaining to you why they do what they do and why they take the approach that they take. And you have every right to ask those questions of why are you requiring that? Why are you, is it typical, why do you do that?
You know, we're going to get to your question, I promise, but real quick, and the reason I wanted to bring up the value of having like an experienced partner in this scenario is a lot of times, especially in our community, we look at things siloed off and how can we do this by ourselves? How can I own 100% of something? And when it comes to doing business acquisition, there's a lot of opportunity out there. There's a lot of money to be made, and you definitely should be able to share. And the companies and people that are taking down these businesses, it's not like there's just one person that's just buying up everything. They build teams, strategic teams. They have partners with experience. They have partners that can bring the capital. They have partners that have the knowledge. They have partners that are going to do the sweat equity, and they're going to do the work in the business and work with their management team. And they come together and say, okay, well, we all have this together. Let's start this company, and we're going to go and invest and acquire our needs because we have everything that's needed. So when you're considering doing something like this for yourself, you want to see who you can partner with, who you can have a team with and be able to go so you can acquire. So that number, she said $1 million isn't a big number to you anymore because you got the right partner. So you don't have to keep everything in a small box. So I really want to challenge everyone in terms of your business, what you want to do, expand your thinking, think big, and just figure out how to achieve it. And, working with people is a great way to do that. So just wanted to throw that in there. What was your question?
When you were first talking about business acquisitions and the different ways you can acquire businesses, is there a place you could go to find businesses specifically that align with your type of business?
There are a lot of there are business brokers that are out there that do that. There's also, and I don't know why I can't remember the website that they say it, even I've never seen it, but I'll look on my phone. I want to say it's BizSell or BuySell. Is it BuySell? Okay. BizBuy. Okay. I knew it was something. It's every day. I knew it was something. But they will show you they have a lot of information. It's industry specific. If you go there to look at what industries are available in your area that may be for sale. If it's a specific industry or industry.
Any more questions?
So I had heard that there's a list that the SBA has that will tell you how much they will finance different types of business. Like if you're looking for an XYZ franchise, the SBA will finance up to 90% of it or 50% of it. Is that true? Is that a list? Is that a thing?
I haven't seen it yet. The only thing that I know that we have is franchise directory, which is the type of franchise that we fund. There are certain ones that we won't get in the business of funding, just to make sure that the franchisee has complete ownership of the actual franchise. But there is a directory that we have on our website.
So will it say how much funding that you all do for it, or is that because if it's $100,000, you're not going to finance $100,000. Would it say, oh, we'll go up to 90,000? It doesn't. It just doesn't type.
And to throw a monkey wrench into that, speaking of how SBA has rocked our world, they did away with that cute little franchise list. They did away with it. So, and what that did was it just meant that the franchisor submitted their information to the SBA, let the SBA review it and say, we're good with you, we don't take an issue. So they would have an identifier code. In each lender, you have to have an identifier code. Well, for whatever reason, they decided they wanted that. So now the lender has to look at the franchise agreement. But having said that, the SBA also kind of loosens up what their issue was. So the whole, really, at a high level, the issue was they did not want to finance any franchise where the franchisor had too much control over the franchisee. Because at that point, you're still gonna feel like a W-2 worker, and you won't have control to, to do what you need to do. So some of the franchises were so tight that they control hiring, discipline, firing, things like that you want to have control over. It's your business, right? And so they kind of loosened up on that from the perspective that they don't have to do it, but the lenders still need to kind of be tasked at looking at that at a high level. All of that went to this is way more information I know y'all want to. All of that went into size standards. So there are size standards within SBA to say that you're a small business. If a franchisor has excessive control over your business, at that point they would say that y'all are an affiliated company, and then they're gonna take the large franchisors' numbers and say you're not a small business anymore because you make all this money because the franchisor made all of that money. They've since loosened up on their affiliation rules, and so that's kind of why that went away. But I think it's still something to be very that you guys need to be very mindful of as you're looking at franchises. Again, where SBDC can help for sure. And where lenders should be kind of helping you as well to the extent that they can. There's always lender liability. So I personally would never say, you can't do this because I'm just going to point things out to you. That you just want to see, just make sure that you see, I just want to make sure you saw this section and you're okay with that section, that type of thing. But so the registry went away, but I think the spirit behind it is still kind of there. As to what you should be looking for, and that's the main thing. There's two things you don't want when you're looking at a franchise. You don't want one that is going to excessively try to control you, and you don't want one that is going to charge a ton of fees and want huge percentages for everything. Percentages for royalty, percentages for percentages. I mean, it can just run the gamut to where you can't even reach your earning potential because all of your money is going to the franchisor. So two main things.
So let's say I open up a franchisee, it's doing well, successful, can I come back to SBA and say, hey, I want to open up another franchise, maybe not even in the same company, but maybe in the same category? Is that something that is still possible?
And I think that goes back to the caps that he was talking about. So when it comes to 7A and Express, we're capped at $5 million on the amount of financing that we can do. So you can have multiple businesses, they could be doing different things, but as long as that common ownership is there, we're going to tie those together to kind of look at to see if you're at that cap or not. When it comes to 504, there is also a $5 million cap. However, if your project, and I think that's good to know too, if your project is certified what is called a green project, so it just means it's environmentally beneficial, then if it's certified green, it does not go against the cap. So you can have multiple green projects without hitting that cap, but it has to be certified. Certified as a green project.
And last question to close out, each of you, what's just some piece of advice that you would give for someone looking to, acquire a business through business acquisition or even just getting funding for business in general?
Yeah, I touched on it. The SBA is funded by your tax dollars. All of our programs that we offer at no cost. Definitely utilize those. The resource partners, I know we've only talked about the small business development centers, but there's a wealth of resource partners that we offer, especially here locally. So not only do we have the SBCs, but we also have sport chapters. We have a women's business center. Actually, we're reconvening that here locally. We have a Veterans Business Outreach Center. We have a Community Navigator program at the Deputy River. But definitely utilize all those different resource partners when you're interested in small business or entrepreneurship. They're able to guide you, consult you, mentor you, coach you on everything there is about being an entrepreneur, being a small business owner. Our website is a very powerful source of information. There's templates on there for business plans. There's constantly trainings on there, webinars about various topics about small business. SBA.gov is actually the most visited website in government. So definitely utilize it as a very powerful resource.
I would piggyback on what he said as far as utilizing your resources. And we didn't talk about it as much, but SCORE. SCORE to me is a neat kind of resource. It's a very unique type of resource. And what it really is the former retired business owners, CEOs, CFOs that are here to mentor you based on what they've seen and what they've experienced, which is a wealth of knowledge. So I think that we didn't talk about that, but the SCORE is really good. But I would say, from my vantage point, a couple of things. Number one, utilize the resources, but understand you're utilizing the resources to become as educated about it as you can be. And understanding that a bank is looking to see, and it's very visible, very visible. Has this person put in the effort? Have they really done their own research to know what they're getting into, or are they just picking stuff? Because we see that too. You just throw it up against the wall, see if it sticks. We see a lot of that too. So I would say make sure that you do the work, you put the work in. Make sure in a business acquisition scenario that you are drilling that seller on how they do business, who their customers are. Reach out to their vendors, reach out to their customers to find out. Because the seller, of course, they're going to make positive spin the best that they can on their business. You want to know the ins and outs, positives and negatives. So put the work in on that piece of it too. And then most importantly, have a plan. Have a plan for how you're going to put your down payment. I don't know of any lender that's going to just, and some of them do, but very few that are going to straight up do 100% financing. And if they do 100% financing, a lot of times your rate is going to be really high. So I think you have to be prepared in having a form of down payment ready, a plan ready for that. And to the extent that I said it before, but to the extent that you're not depleting everything you have. For two reasons. Number one, you gotta have money to live off of. And number two, there's always this ramp up phase, and there's always gonna be things that you didn't anticipate that are gonna come up. You know, so you want to be prepared for those things. But I think those are the most critical things that I kind of see when I sit down and I talk to clients and prospects. It's really just kind of having your ducks in a row. Not necessarily that you have to be an expert in all of the aspects of it, because you won't. But I think most importantly, you ought to know the industry. You ought to know, the specifics of day-to-day operations of what you're trying to buy.
Can we give our panelists a hand?
Thank you for tuning in with us. Make sure you like and subscribe to Connected Worldwide for more content like this. Stay tuned.